Superbill. What is a superbill? A superbill is used by a healthcare provider as a primary source of data for creating claims. These claims will eventually be submitted to payers for reimbursement. Essentially, a superbill is an itemized list of all services provided to a client. The superbill will also contain additional information about the patient visit, including practice information, CPT codes, ICD-10 codes, referring doctor, and more. We'll cover these components in the following section. Just remember, superbills aggregate the data from a patient visit needed to successfully submit an insurance claim. Superbills are different from the CMS 1500 form. However, they do provide some of the same information, and the superbill is submitted to reimburse the patient, and the CMS 1500 is used to reimburse the provider. Let's talk about the components of a superbill. The first component is the provider information. The provider information is pretty straightforward. It includes all of the relevant information regarding the practice when submitting a claim to the insurance company. The provider's first name and last name, their MPI number, their office location, where the visit took place, the phone number, the email address, the provider's signature, and also the referring provider if the patient was referred to that provider from someone else. Now, as far as the NPI number, that's a National Provider Identifier number. It's a unique 10-digit identification number used to healthcare providers in the United States by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Now, if your client or patient was referred to a physician, if you're working for a physician and that patient was referred to the physician you're working for, then you would have to include that medical doctor's information as far as their MPI number on the claim. Now, another component is patient information. The patient information includes all of the patient information needed to successfully submit an insurance claim for reimbursement, which includes the patient's first and last name, their address, their phone number, date of birth, and insurance information. Another component is the visit information. This information regarding the visit itself is a critical component of a superbill. Unlike a typical receipt or invoice or a CMS 1500, the superbill does contain procedure codes and diagnosis codes and modifiers and any additional pieces of data to avoid the denial of a claim, such as the date of service, like I said, the CPT, the ICD-9, the modifier, and like units or minutes, or even the fees that are being charged. Now, the CPT is the current procedure terminology, and it is a code that is an index of medical and health services created by American Medical Association. And also the ICD-10 is the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems, and it's referred to any symptoms that the patient may have. Now, the goal of the ICD-10 is to help you make a diagnosis, and you got to make sure you're using that 10th version, because the ICD-9, if you use ICD-9 instead of ICD-10, these are likely to be rejected as outdated. So just be mindful of that. Now, another thing I'd like to show you is an example of a superbill. A superbill can provide all of the information an insurance company needs to create that healthcare claim. So if patients submit their own superbill, and they can, the provider can fill it out and the front desk person can give it to the patient and they can mail it themselves. However, most of the time the provider does it as a courtesy and they will bill that superbill for the patient. Sometimes, you know, the important thing is if the patient owes the provider any type of reimbursement, then the reimbursement provided by the insurance company will go directly to the client or the patient, and the patient is responsible for still paying for their services out of pocket. So just be sure that when a patient is going to submit a super bill, that you still collect payment from that client generally before or during the time of service. And providing that super bill potentially reduces the cost of care for that patient. This is the end of a super bill.